Okay, welcome everyone to March 12th, 2025 quarterly meeting of the Illinois Forensic Science Commission. My name is Amy Watrova. I'm the executive director of the commission. Our chairperson, Director Kelly, will not be joining us today. So we have Director Designee Robin Woolery here. So between her and I, we'll be kind of running the business end of the meeting. We thank you all for joining us. Before I put up the slides for the meeting, I'm going to go ahead and start with a roll call. I'll start with commission members and we'll confirm quorum, and then we'll move on just for purposes of the minutes to any guests or public members that we have here. So I'm going to start with a roll call. Director Kelly, not present.
I am.
Oh, you're present. Oh, you are here.
Just virtually, but thank you.
Okay,
Thanks,
great.
Robin, for filling in. Thank you.
Director, did you want Robin to kind of run the business end of the meeting, or do you want to do that from WebEx?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, you're a little choppy, just so you know, if we have trouble hearing you. So Director Kelly is here. Dr. Arun Kumar, Jillian Baker, Jeffrey Buford, Claire Dragovich, Catherine Drummond, present via WebEx. John Hanlon, Judge Art Hill,
Present via WebEx.
present via WebEx. Jody Hoos, present. Dr. Hughes, present. Jeannie Ryhill, present. Karen Tucker, present. Carrie Ward,
Present via WebEx.
Okay, great. And now I'm going to go through the screen and just identify others that I see. So we have Lindsay Simpson. I believe you are from NERCL. I see Phil Kinsey, former commission member, newly former commission member, also from NERCL. I see Peter St. Andre. Did I pronounce that correctly? Also, I believe from NERCL, Amy Miles.
Okay.
Brendan
Let's try this
Heffron,
again. Let's shut this down.
Dagmara I'm going to pronounce that wrong. Wotas,
This is weird. Where's my mouse?
Gina
There it is.
Havlick, also from NERCL. Kevin McMahon, I believe from the DuPage County Public Defender's Office. Maya Duke Masova, a member of the media. Again, I apologize for mispronouncing your name. And then I have a couple of people who are identified by phone numbers. If you could either state your name or share it in the chat for purposes of minutes, please. And if everyone could please check if you're muted, we have some background noise.
You can Peter's coming.
I can do it.
Yeah.
Can't tell who it
Oh, he's muted. We have a chat. Just a chat.
Amy, are you able to mute people who are not speaking?
That's what I'm doing right now, Director. We're gonna mute people that are not muted. Okay, okay.
It looks like there may be some comments in chat.
Comments in the chat. Okay, let's see what we've got here. So we have, okay.
I didn't know if somebody was saying
So the two individuals who have 773 phone numbers, could you please identify yourself just in the chat for purposes of the minutes? Or verbally, please?
Mike Hart, Office of University Counsel, UIC.
Thank you.
Dale Rush, UIC.
Dale, D-A-L-E, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you so much for identifying yourself. We appreciate it. Okay, so we do have quorum, and I believe everybody is noted. I'm sorry. Sorry, I forgot you, Robin, because I said you, Deputy Director Robin Woolery is present in person, and I am also present in person.
And then guest chairperson.
And we have guests in person, yes. Timothy Rupel and Sarah Ware, present in person. Okay, thank you. Let me now share. Okay. So welcome, everyone. The first item on the agenda is the review and possible adoption of the minutes from the last meeting, which was on December 16th, 2024. Does anyone have any amendments to those minutes that were distributed to the commission members? Any discussion? If not, then I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the December meeting minutes. I second the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? You can, I believe you're gonna vote yes. Okay, so that motion passes. Those minutes are approved and will be posted on the commission's website. The next item on the agenda is the executive director's summary. So I want to first start by doing two things that are related. First, welcome NERCL's new lab director, Peter St. Andre, which again, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, who I believe began about a week or two ago. So we welcome Peter. He is not yet on the commission. I forwarded the information. He will have to go through the appointment process to fill the lab director position formerly held by Phil Kinsey. But we look forward to working with you, Peter. And then second is to announce and to thank Phil Kinsey for not only his decades of service to forensic science, but also his 3 years of service to the commission. He's still with NERCL, serving for a few more months in a different capacity, helping with the transition. But Phil, you will be sorely missed. We really appreciate working with you. On behalf of the commission, we wish you a very well-deserved retirement.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next we have a legal legislative update. So one thing that we did, since we are in the heart of the legislative session, this was, I believe, Ms. Baker's suggestion, was I created a document that everyone on the commission can access and add bills to if they want, if they hear of things that I haven't heard about. And it's available on the shared channel. And basically, those are all the bills right now related to forensic science that I'm keeping track of. So that is available to you. That's what it looks like right now, but you can certainly just add things at the bottom and then I can put them under the correct heading to kind of categorize them if you'd like. As we get deeper into the session, I may change this a little bit to add status or where it's at, as far as like next action date or something like that. So hopefully that is helpful to you. The one bill I was going to talk about, because it relates to the commission's enabling statute, is House Bill 2586. And this is in response to the action the commission took last year related to both creating the position of vice chair and figuring out a mechanism to recommend that a new chairperson be appointed. I believe that this decision to start this 2-year cycle came after the commission, made the decisions about having a vice chair and recommendation. So should this legislation pass and should this take effect, then the commission can decide how that will impact, if we need to make any additional tweaks to the bylaws or how we're going to move forward then with, the January 1st. But it's nice that it's at the beginning of the year, I think, and it's a regular amount of time. So then we'll be able to work backwards and figure out when that recommendation needs to be pushed forward. Next is education and outreach. I attended the AAFS conference last month. Just general summaries. Anything that's relevant to any subcommittee work, I'll provide to them. But I attended presentations in jurisprudence, criminalistics, And I also got to see Dr. Hughes present for anthropology, which was very interesting. Dr. Arun Kumar was also in attendance, but I somehow missed her and the thousands of people that were there. So just to kind of sum up I tried to classify most of the presentations I heard. It was a lot about the topic of communication of scientific findings to fact finders at trial and, before trial, and that included law enforcement and finders of fact and attorneys. Complex topics, so basically the complex forensic evidence, how to effectively communicate that. Activity level propositions were talked about a lot, standards use, reliability statements, and then probability statements like likelihood ratios. As I told someone, I never want to hear the word Bayesian again after that conference. And then another hot topic was how to report inconclusive decisions in pattern disciplines. There was also a very interesting presentation about the current state of forensic accreditation in the United States, which did reference the National Association of Forensic Science Boards and the possible role that commissions might play looking forward. So I'm expecting that perhaps next year at the conference, commissions might be a topic that gets a little bit more attention. And then I did attend a number of presentations on FIG, since we have an ad hoc subcommittee on that. So I appreciate that I was able to attend that. I also attended a very interesting webinar. So Ted Hunt is a senior policy advisor, formerly with the DOJ, now with the FBI, who advises the FBI's lab. He presented a 2-hour presentation on Smith versus Arizona. He kindly shared his slide deck with everyone. So that has been posted as well in the workspace. So if you want to see the slide deck, it's pretty dense, like it's got some good information. I think he also did a very good job he's a lawyer, but trying to target explaining the concepts in Smith to forensic scientists. So that resource is available and you can share that freely because he shared it freely. And then finally, I continue to be as active as possible with the National Association of Forensic Science Boards. At this point, it's attending their executive committee meetings, and I continue to serve on their membership committee. They're tentatively talking about their conference being kind of skipping calendar year 2025, but having it in January of 2026 instead. That's tentative. I'll keep you posted on that in case anyone wants to attend. All right. First, before we get into subcommittee reports, does anyone have any questions or related to anything in the executive summary? Okay. The next would be subcommittee reports, starting with quality systems. Ms. Dragovich.
All right, the quality subcommittee met January 23rd and February 27th. We started the process of preparing the 2024 report on significant nonconformities. To begin, we reviewed the statutory language related to state and local publicly funded ISO 17025 accredited labs, providing reports to the commission, and in those reports summarizing their significant nonconformities. We then use publicly available websites to identify state and local labs meeting those criteria. At the direction of the subcommittee, letters explaining the statute and requesting a response were sent to the labs identified, which were the Analytical Forensic Testing Lab, also known as AFTIL, the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office, DuPage County Forensic Science Center, the ISP Forensic Sciences Command, and the Northeastern Illinois Regional Crime Lab, also known as NERCL. Responses were received from 4 of the 5 laboratories. One lab, AFTIL, requested and were granted a 1-month extension due to an external investigation currently occurring related to human testing. Given the commitment of AFTIL to provide a report, an extension was granted, and we expect to hear from them by April 3rd. The subcommittee has reviewed and discussed the responses by the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office and NERCL at the February 27th meeting. We plan to review the responses by the other 3 labs at upcoming meetings and then move forward to prepare a summary report for the commission.
Thank you.
Good question. Sorry, when is the report? Do we have a date the report has to be in by
No,
mandated? No. So we usually try to get them in by, they have to come to the committee first, right?
yeah, the
We
subcommittee
discuss,
first, and
And
then
then we
once,
post it.
yeah, and then we give it to the commission to review.
Mhm.
And then that's usually prior to a commission meeting, and then
And we
any
go on
questions
that
can be
way.
addressed, and then we approve it at that following meeting.
So we should be looking to approve the report at our next meeting in June.
Hopefully, yes.
Okay, all right.
Last year's
That's what it was.
report
That's what I
was approved in June.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Anything else for quality? Okay, training and career development, Ms. Tucker.
The Training and Career Development Subcommittee met a few times. And we are still focused on video projects. We're on our second video project, which is the creation of training videos of the core disciplines. We decided to start with Layton's and drug chemistry. Layton's has submitted a presentation to the committee for review, and the committee is currently reviewing it. Drug chemistry will be submitting their presentation to the committee shortly. Executive Director Wetruba and I are still working on bookending the presentation with footage from our stakeholders. And Executive Director is working on the legal disclaimer for these presentations. The footage we're looking for from the stakeholders, originally we were thinking about just the laboratories, but now we're gonna look at getting footage from all of our stakeholders that are on the commission, so the court systems or the groups that are also on the commission. So we hope to have, our goal is to have the latents and drug chemistry presentations for the June meeting is what we're striving for right now, and then we'll begin on the other sections at that point.
Great, thank you. And thank you to this subcommittee for all the hard work that's going into creating these videos. They're doing a really great job. I was very impressed by what I saw at the last meeting. Anyone else? Public policy, Mr. Hanlon.
We met since the last full commission meeting. We met twice, January 24th and February 28th. Our direction during those meetings was to take up any new topics that members of the subcommittee were interested in. We had spent a lot of time in last year on the issues that we're going to see today in terms of DUI, THC. And so both Jillian and Chris had suggestions, and so feel free to explain your suggestion and likewise.
Sure. Just to give a little background on the suggestion, coming from a drug chemistry perspective in the analysis of these drugs. In the state of Illinois, drugs are controlled either by name or by chemical class. So when the laboratory identifies a controlled substance, we identify what the substance is. If it happens to be a substance that falls under a chemical class, traditionally laboratories may provide some additional information in the report stating that this compound belongs to a chemical class within the statutes. Recently, there's several new novel psychoactive substances coming through our casework and a potential for a class once all the labs in the state system has presented itself to where we have a group that reviews compounds seen by the laboratory to determine if they do in fact belong within the chemical class that's controlled within statute. By doing so, we will have then consistency in reporting throughout the state as to whether a compound fits into a chemical class or not. It will also help in identifying any trends in casework and identifying any legislation that is lacking. As we know, in the drug world, compounds continue to change. And through this group, we'd be able to see if new compounds are coming on board that don't fit into the statutes. And then the commission can put forth potentially suggestions for legislative changes. In addition, that information that we get on drug trends could be shared with law enforcement agencies and also medical examiners' offices, so they can be aware of things that we're seeing in casework and potentially affecting their casework as well.
Great, thank you. Back to Mr.
So we discussed the Illinois Missing Persons Act, which effectively outlines what is required for missing persons investigations as well as unidentified human remains investigations from the coroners and medical examiners offices. And there are some updates that are in the works with Jason Moran at the Cook County Sheriff's Office. And one of the things that this has kind of brought to light is that as the act currently stands, it references funding sources. It compels medical examiners and coroners to ensure that certain DNA stuff is done, like so that you're getting put as profiles for your unidentified human remains cases. But it highlights that either the Illinois State Police lab can be used, and the issue there is that if it's not a criminal case and it doesn't meet the mandate, right? So if you're not clear on how the person died or what the manner of death was beyond homicide, then funding, they have to find external funding of how to get the CODIS profile generated. And when the Missing Persons Act was originally developed and conceived, NamUs, right, the National Missing and Unidentified Person System, did have federal funding, consistent federal funding to supply to any coroner's agency nationwide that needed this service for both mitochondrial DNA and CODIS. But there was a shift about 5 years ago where University of North Texas no longer housed NamUs, and since then the funding has also changed where they're very, very limited in the number of cases they have, and the federal funding is much smaller and less reliable. And so because of that change, coroners are really feeling a squeeze as to how to follow through with what they're compelled to do, right, with their case investigation. So one of the things that we're trying to do is examine what those needs are of coroners, how much of an issue this really is. I had the opportunity to go down and speak with the Coroners Association, Coroners and Medical Examiners Association of our state in January to start the discussion. There was a lot of positive feedback in terms of, coming and kind of saying at the end, like, yep, this all makes sense. We've been struggling with this for years now. How can we address this in our state? So we decided as a subcommittee that this probably wasn't quite as right as Jillian's suggestion. So what we're going to be doing is Connie and I are going to be working together or Dr. Rukumar and I are going to be working together to work with the Illinois Coroners Medical Examiner Association to collect a little bit more information there on kind of understanding, kind of combing through the entire act with them and understanding what all kind of needs to be updated to reflect the current situation for unidentified and missing person remains. And we're going to collaborate with those stakeholders that are already working through this at the state police as well as at the Cook County Sheriff's Office.
Great, thank you. And then when you have more information, you'll bring it back to the subcommittee.
Correct.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for public policy? Oh, all right, technology, Mr. Buford.
Yes, thank you. Our subcommittee has met twice since our last full commission meeting, in January 22nd, and last week, March 5th. We have 3 topics that have been on the table that I'm giving updates to. The first one is AI discussions, which we've agreed as a subcommittee. This is a very broad subject as it pertains to forensic applications. We had 2 lively roundtable discussions with each forensic core discipline, giving feedback regarding various articles that we received from NAFSB and others, and also applications that may be considered AI or in that realm in their various disciplines. What we come to the conclusion, we reached a point in our discussions where we were determining and having bantering concerning analytical versus administrative areas. Does AI fall into either of those categories? And what other areas would benefit from AI applications moving forward, such as quality assurance measures or other administrative applications? I feel that this point, we believe all the subject matter experts that share their information. We're at a point now where we need external insight. So we will be inviting a guest speaker who has been determined to be an expert in AI applications for forensic applications in a future meeting to assist us in this topic. We're making progress, but that's where we are right now. The second topic that we have discussed is we've established a LIMS working group that will work with the subcommittee. This working group met last month as an information sharing session, and it was agreed by that group to review FTCOE's resource guide. It's entitled Laboratory Information Management System and Forensic Science Service Providers Laboratories for the current state and next generation of this particular topic. This particular this particular group is looking to meet quarterly or as needed, and they'll provide information to the subcommittee of their progress for this working group. Finally, as a follow-up to our phase 2 of emerging technologies, we've been making progress as abroad with different agencies or different laboratories, either purchasing new technologies or making progress in researching to purchase new equipment. For example, Illinois State Police is looking into high-resolution screening with QTOF, which is a practical time-of-flight application for toxicology. This is a mass spectroscopy application they're looking into. Was informed that NERCL has purchased a virtual comparison microscopy technology. We have been discussing this throughout the subcommittee for emerging technologies. This is for the forensic, this is for the firearms discipline. And ISP has done a thorough layered study of the same application, and they're now primed to consider purchasing the same application for their technology as emerging technologies are still being followed up. So those are the things in which we have been discussing at this point.
Great. Any questions for technology for discussion? Well, thank you very much. Forensic Investigative Genetic Genealogy, FIG, Dr. Hughes.
Sure. So the subcommittee met on January 28th, and we had Joanna Johnson from the she's the forensics biology supervisor for the Indiana State Police Laboratory. And it was great to hear from her. She spoke about the process of onboarding FIG internally, which went online December 2024. So there are several systems and approaches you can take to FIG. They're specializing in the Kintelligence system using the MySeq FGX instrumentation, and they're also doing the tree building from those results in-house. So she spoke a bit about things like the genealogy training, the types of cases that they're actually planning to work for FIG, the kind of unit composition, who all is involved in that new unit, the funding strategies, and their instrumentation and choice approaches. They do plan at this point to outsource other FIG approaches, like whole genome sequencing, to a vendor, depending on what the results of those internal Kintelligence assessments do. That was, I think, the only meeting we were able to have at this time. And I kept looking for a second one. It felt like we had one, but it's been fast this last couple of months. But we do have, thankfully, Wendy McLean, who's the lead genealogist for the Investigative Support Unit at the University of North Texas Center for Human Identification. We were fortunate enough, I think our first meeting that we had kicked off with their validation and technology coordinator, Amy Smuts. And so that was kind of on the wet lab side, and now we're getting to go over to the genealogy side. Jeannie and I both had the opportunity to hear from her at a training we attended in September at ISHU. So it's going to be exciting to have her come in and have her all to ourselves to get to pick her brain. So that's scheduled, I think, for March or April.
It's in the next couple
did we
of
lock
weeks.
up? Yeah.
I don't have my calendar in front of me. Next Friday? Next Friday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Great. Does anyone have any questions for FIG? Okay, so moving on to discussion items. The first item for discussion is the topic of possibly providing a link to Florida International University's Research Forensic Library on the Commission's webpage. I'll give you a little bit of background. I know some of you already subscribe to their daily emails. When Judge Hill and I were at the NAFSAB conference in November, we had the opportunity to meet the individual who's in charge of this library. And so I actually talked to him because I had noticed that Texas's commission had a link to this research library on their commission webpage. So I asked him, if I took this to the commission and if the commission wanted to provide this as a resource, is that something you're open to? Do you have to run it past any legal departments? Like, what is the process on your end? And he, he was like, oh, I never thought of it that way. But, so he did go back and confirm, even though it's already linked out there and it is partially federally funded. So this library, the idea, what I would be asking, if you guys are open to it, if you decide you want to do it, would be to, and I'll show you at the end what it might look like, would be to provide this link as a resource on the commission's page. This library is incredible. It's the first of its kind forensics library. It's in collaboration with the NIJ. Let me move to the next slide. So it contains not only newly published articles and reports covering every major discipline. It's got upwards over 7,500 probably at this point since I had numbers from him. It also has historical articles, which are very interesting, and everything is available to download at no cost. So a lot of resources that might not be easily findable by the public or practitioners in the legal field or any other field. This is a great resource where they can access literature and resources related to forensic science. Another great thing is that through the website, if we have this link and people go to it and then start looking around, they'll find that there's this daily digest available to them where you can sign up to get an email every day, Monday through Friday, that gives some information, that basically provides links to articles. And I know we all get a lot of emails in our systems, but these are very not overbearing. This is a sample of what a daily one would look like. It breaks it down by discipline and tells you what article or articles it's providing that day, and then it provides you with a direct link to those articles. I find this is very helpful to me. It's part of my like morning routine. Whatever time it comes in, I pour some coffee and I look through and I see what might be relevant. I open it, I download it into my own like personal resource file if I, think it's something that I might need. I share it as needed with anyone who I think might find it useful or populate it into the commission's own different resource libraries. So I just think getting this out there would be wonderful if you guys are willing to do that. And what I think it might look like is, what I'm proposing is that if you approve that I talk to the web people who run our website and that we add a resources tab. And we could put the link under the resources tab, also thinking ahead to the fact that the training and career development subcommittee will be coming out with those videos shortly. I'm hoping that we could house those videos under the resources tab.
Nice.
Whether we can you can play them on, I'm guessing from a tech standpoint, they probably won't be able to be played on the webpage. It'll probably be a link to a YouTube video, but at least then they could be accessed there. We could also duplicate some of the documents that are currently on the reports. For example, the recommendations regarding training for forensic scientists, I think would be appropriate to have a link both under reports and then also under resources, because that could be a resource for forensic scientists. So I think going forward, knowing what type of output you as a commission are likely to produce in the coming years, that might be a good addition. So there's my spiel. I open it up for discussion.
Good deal.
Yeah.
You think so? That's great. I think that's
Great.
great.
This looks like a rich resource that we all have, interest in.
Yeah, and I had heard of, I think Claire initially is the one who tipped me off to the daily emails, and then I went to the website, and it's been around for a while, and I was actually a little embarrassed that I didn't know it existed. So, it's an amazing resource. So if we're able to help facilitate people accessing it and, and the materials, and it also, I think, helps, it's very consistent with the commission's transparency and resource kind of purpose. It would be nice to have it on your webpage.
I like the idea of the resource tab too, and that we can, going forward, just put everything there.
Right? Okay.
Searchable such that if we, after these start to pile up after a while, we're looking for one thing that I read 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we can go back.
Yes, so I will take you back, I believe, and maybe I didn't capture it, I just did screenshots. There are these categories, I believe on the web page, there is a search box where you can search certain topics or words. It seems very user friendly, and they keep it updated as stuff comes in. It's an amazing resource.
That's great. Thank you.
And it's available to the public, so
Yeah.
great. All right, well, in that case, I'd entertain a motion, however anyone wants to word it.
I make a motion that we add a resource tab to the website and add the link to Florida International University Research Forensic Library to that resource, box area.
And, yeah, well, Art Hill seconds also. I think I'm
Oh,
about
I'm
the
sorry,
eighth
Judge
person.
Hill. I can't see your screen, so I didn't see that you had your hand up. Did you want to comment before we vote?
No, I was just gonna either move or second, that's all.
Okay, I apologize. With the way the screen is, I can't readily see everybody. Okay, so we have motion and a second. I don't think we need a roll call vote on this. We could do it by affirmation. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Any anyone opposed or abstaining? Okay, great. That motion passes. Thank you. Hopefully it won't take too long to get up there. I will start working on it with Ted. The second issue, kind of related to legislation, well, is related to legislation, but I saved it for an agenda item. So I wanted to provide everyone with an update about Senate Bill 1889. As you will recall, last year, during the last legislative session, there was some legislation proposed to amend the DUI, the cannabis provision, the per se cannabis provision of the DUI statute. The commission, while making recommendations and statements related to that statute, decided not to take a position on that particular piece of legislation. That legislation, I think, died in Rules Committee, but now this session, there is this new bill also proposed by Senator Morrison. And so I wanted to put it in front of you because the language differs from what was offered last year. So this bill proposes, in its current form, proposes changes to the A7, the per se provision of the DUI statute. The main ones are that it defines, and they're just going to say THC, and I notice I put TCH at one point there, typo. Tetrahydrocannabinol or THC as free, and then also parent delta-9 THC. And then it also excludes urine from another bodily substance for purposes of this statute. Then in the 501.2, which has formerly had the definition of the kind of all-encompassing definition for tetrahydrocannabinol concentration, it proposes language that's consistent with what would also be expressly in section A7. So again, clarifying that it's free THC and defines that as parent delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, and also excludes urine as a possible matrix for testing. Finally, in the presumption section of the statute, so just for the non-lawyers in the room, this section applies to not per se prosecutions for DUI cannabis, but DUI cannabis cases that are prosecuted under an impairment theory. There is this presumption structure that exists should lawyers seek to use it. So again, this proposes changing the language that would be consistent with those two other provisions, excluding urine, clearly filling in some omissions that they probably noticed, the per milliliter that wasn't there before, and encompassing the definition in the previous part of the section. So why I'm bringing this to your attention is because given your recommendation from last year that the statute be amended to clarify that THC means only free delta-9 THC, and given your statement on the 2-hour collection window where you made in your findings, you noted that both blood should be collected in addition to urine in Illinois during DUI investigations because urine is not an appropriate matrix for detecting delta-9 THC. The question I thought we should have possibly discussion on, and if you decide to make a motion on, was do we want to support this? Do you as a commission want to support this bill in its current form? So as opposed to taking a little bit more of a passive approach to sharing the commission's position on these issues, that would empower me to do things like put in a witness slip on behalf of the commission, in support of the bill in its current form, reach out a little bit more. Aggressive is the wrong word, but a little more directly. This is currently in the Cannabis Committee, so I don't think they've populated that with people yet. Possibly reach out, work with Senator Morrison to see if, the Cannabis Commission wants to hear from the commission, which again, I could do. So basically letting me take it a step further, assuming again that the language stays as is. Sometimes language gets changed along the way. But that's what I'm basically bringing before you.
Do we know if any amendments have been filed to this yet?
Not yet. I checked the other day to make sure. I check it every day.
Yeah, because that stuff pops up.
Exactly. So right now it's in cannabis. So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
that it's in Cannabis Committee. So, and I don't know, maybe Ms. Ward can comment further on that. Like if I put in a witness slip, for example, in support of it with the current language, and the language changes such that it would no longer be consistent with the commission's position, I assume there's a way for me to pull my witness slip.
So what happens is when you file the witness slip, you will file it on the version of the bill that you intend to support. So if you filed it based on how it's originally filed, a witness slip based on the original bill, it's in support of that. But you can also file a witness slip based on the bill as amended. So you would file that separately. So it would be okay, like if you filed it based on the original language, but then the bill was amended, it doesn't demonstrate the commission's support of the amended version.
Okay, so, but if they let's say they made an amendment, let's say that the commission filed a witness slip in support of this version, they make an amendment, but it's not substantive, it's, fixing a typo or something along those lines. I could then file another witness slip in support of that version or remain silent and just support the original version.
Absolutely. And I think we would probably want to, if we approve this going forward, give you the latitude that if there was an amendment that didn't change the bill substantively, that we want you to still be able to support that without having to come back to the commission.
Okay. If you put a witness slip in, do they have to notify you of changes? Is there, how do you know?
No.
They don't. They don't.
No, they don't. Any citizen can go, or organization can go in and put a witness slip in support or opposition of legislation.
Okay.
So, but this is one that I track daily.
What I like about this bill is that it takes the different types of body fluids as described in 501.2A and brings it straight into the language where it's controlled so that nobody needs to go back and read that the statute is always talking about blood, urine, breath, or other bodily substance.
Yes.
And puts it right in there to say, hey, it's blood or other bodily substance, which is not urine, which we explained in 501.2A. So I like that is being put in so nobody needs to reference back.
Right.
And I like the clarification of free THC, even though that is what was already written in the statute. I like the addition of the word free. So I would be in support of the commission supporting this language.
I'm just going to jump in here real quick to say, if we get to the point where we're voting, I'm going to have to abstain just because my role this year, I'm the president of the Illinois States Attorneys Association, and our lobbyists would probably kill me if I voted on something that I hadn't discussed with my association. That was a criminal statute. So,
Well, and that's another, I mean, since you bring that up, if you decide you want to empower me to go forth and push for the commission's position on this, that would presumably involve contacting different associations to see if we agree or not. So, that whatever motion you guys end up, that would be my intention. If you feel strongly that this is consistent with your feelings on this topic, which at least on paper, it seemed to me like it was, and Mr. Agovich seems to agree, I would give it as full court of a process I could without being obnoxious. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, then if someone could make a motion. Carrie, do you want to make the motion? So you can word it right?
Sure. Did you say me?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Is your specialty.
Absolutely. Well, those are kind words. Thank you. But I would move that the commission support the bill and authorize Executive Director Wetruba to pursue passage of the bill in alignment with the commission's position. And this is just an aside, not part of the language of the words, but I think it's important that we make that clear that if there are, you know, sort of minor changes, but the bill continues to align with this language that we have here, that she is authorized to continue to move forward with pursuing the bill. So I think perhaps my motion clarifies that, but that's certainly my intent. So if anyone has a friendly amendment to the language that makes that clearer, that's definitely the direction I'm going.
I second that motion.
Okay. Since this does involve legislation, I'm going to suggest a roll call vote, if everyone's okay with that. So I will go down the roll. Director designee. I need a second, so you vote yes?
Yes.
Dr. Arukumar.
Yes.
Ms. Baker.
Yes.
Mr. Buford.
Yes.
Ms. Dragovich.
Yes.
Ms. Drummond.
I'm gonna have to abstain for purposes of today due to the positions of the IACDL and NACDL currently, but I could change my vote later.
Okay. Mr. Hamlin. Judge Hill. Ms. Hughes.
I'm gonna abstain for today at least.
Dr. Hughes.
Yes.
Ms. Rydell.
Yes.
Ms. Tucker.
Yes.
Ms. Ward.
Yes.
11, which I believe is in the, yeah, a majority of quorum. So, okay, so that motion passes. Thank you, everyone. I was excited when I saw the language of that bill. Okay, so then the final discussion item is the topic of THC testing at the UIC Analytical Forensic Testing Laboratory, which I know Ms. Dragovich touched upon a little bit already as far as the work that the Quality Systems Subcommittee is doing as part of their annual process of reviewing significant nonconformities, and the fact that AFTL is one of the laboratories that is engaging in that process. But to bring it to the discussion table of the full commission, this really is truly just a discussion item. Because of the fact that it is an issue right now that is, I pulled up, I'm gonna hone in a little closer. These are the duties and purpose of the commission. So this is your statutory scope. One thing that I think Judge Hill and I had hammered into our brains again at NAFSB was anytime there's an issue relating to forensic science with a commission, whether you're whatever type of commission you are, and you are a non-regulatory, non-investigatory commission, you are an advisory commission and a stakeholder commission. However, you do have these duties in your scope. And so in looking at at least number 2, obviously provide a forum for discussions between forensic science stakeholders to improve communication and coordination and to monitor the important issues impacting all stakeholders. That I think certainly would be triggered here. And then possibly depending on how, I know that there is an investigation going on, depending on, you know, information as it flows from that, perhaps there might be other aspects of your scope that you might decide, you know, what it might look like for you guys to address this current situation. So really it was just, yeah, I'm gonna open it up for conversation.
Do we want to describe some of the testing issues that have been in the news?
Sure. Sure. So, based on what has been available via news reports and then also press release from the DuPage County State's Attorney's Office, it appears that in 2024, and anyone can interrupt me if I state this incorrectly, that during a quality assurance review, an issue with methodology for toxicology was discovered, revealing that perhaps the methodology being used by this laboratory was not separating out the Delta 8 and Delta 9 isomers, which and this would be in DUI cases, obviously. Yes, so primarily I would think. So a notification was sent out to at least to prosecutors' offices. I'm assuming as part of a corrective action process. This lab is no longer doing human testing. So as far as it being an issue going forward, the lab is not doing human testing. But we know that it has had, that this issue with the methodology has at least had some downstream impact because one state's attorney's office at least has in a press release noted that, and I have that here. And this is available online, noted that they did a case review based on their notification that they received from the UIC lab. And that based on this methodology issue, they made some decisions on what to do with some cases in that jurisdiction. So I don't know if there's, if I summed it up.
Amy, can I don't know if anybody else is waiting, if I can just weigh in here. This is Art Hill.
Please do.
Sure. So a couple things as it relates to our mandate, at least the way I read it. Sort of anything that impacts the public perception or public trust in forensic science, I think is in our ballpark, that we have a duty, both statutorily as well as just for the sake of the science, we have a duty to address those issues as much as we can and as best we can to restore public confidence in forensic science and forensic scientists. So as I think you've already pointed out, I think this is within our bailiwick to talk about something like this. The other thing that I want to mention, in a prior iteration of my life, I was chief deputy and then first assistant state's attorney in the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. And back those years ago, it wasn't about a scientific laboratory issue. We had some allegations of wrongdoing from a particular district or area of the police department. And we had to, as it did relate to drug arrests and convictions and sentences. And like Bob Berlin in DuPage County, even proactively, the prosecutor's office has to look at the science and go back and evaluate those cases that are now under question based on some irregularities that are reported. And it resulted then, as I think now, in the prosecutor's office dismissing pending cases that are impacted before trial, bringing back cases where there had been a conviction and even a sentence, even a penitentiary sentence. So from the lawyer's standpoint, from the prosecutor's standpoint, this is very impactful, and it should be not a surprise to anyone that the state's attorneys, the prosecutors have to take this kind of action. But it's, of course, directly related to the irregularities, the alleged irregularities from the crime lab. So this is something that has to happen, and we have to, of course, watch to see the rest of this plays out. But I just wanted to mention that aspect of this.
Thank you, Judge Hill. Does anyone have? John?
I'm wondering if the defendants who may have been impacted by this, the defendants and or the Illinois Public Defender Association and or the Illinois State Bar Association even have been notified of this, number one. And my second question is there anyone who may have been impacted by this who's still incarcerated?
Well, I can say again from the news reports done by ABC7 that I believe that there is one case of an individual in Boone County, who is represented by counsel, who I believe has a post-conviction petition pending related to this. I don't know what the status of that is. I mean, as judge, so for those of you who don't know, I'm a former prosecutor. You know, as we well know, whenever there is any type of, I'll just say loosely, issue, brought to the attention of a prosecutor's office, they have to do a case-by-case evaluation, and decide how cases may or may not have been impacted. So I don't know if there would be any way for us to measure that. I mean, it has been covered by the media. I don't know the extent to which AFTL, who they all contacted as part of their corrective actions. Again, their corrective action, again, this might be something we're able to, this might be a situation we don't have enough information yet because UIC is doing an investigation. So it might be one of those things where perhaps the right approach is to wait and see until that investigation is complete, and then the commission would look at that investigation. I mean, again, something just to talk about, and it's not, I will say this too, it's not unlike what the commission dealt with the victims' DNA database. You know, an issue was identified that then the commission looked at to see if that practice was going on in any labs in Illinois, and then you made a decision as to what to do there too. So that's another way to think about it as well, is, you know, this lab is no longer testing, so the continued testing at this lab presumably then is not an issue, but do you want to, is that a possible approach too? I don't know, I'm not a scientist, so it's really just to start the discussions, knowing that this is an issue that is currently impacting forensic science stakeholders, but also keeping in mind that you're not an investigatory moving forward.
So are you saying like, obviously like the DNA one, just based such and such labs are not doing this? Is that what you mean by that? That DNA one was about, that was basically, we're not doing this. Relationship to that lab in another state that was doing that. And from the commission, kind of like, I'll call it survey of the labs within that were not doing this, the accredited labs. I don't know enough about any accreditation of this lab or anything to speak to it. I just know our lab and the two other labs present here.
What we could do is, just a suggestion, if we want to write a letter like that, the accredited ISO 17025 laboratories in the state of Illinois that do this. None of us are currently the testing that was done in this case, you know, worded differently, but basically say, this is just the 3 laboratories that we're talking about. And we could basically have a statement saying, it's been reviewed and that none of the testing.
Yes.
So add just a couple things. Well, just a comment. Normally when there's, I would say irregularity or something that happens with the lab, they notify the prosecutor's office. I'm guessing that's how Bob Berlin found out. And then the prosecutor has a duty to not only review those cases, but let the defense know too. So I don't want you to think, although I have no idea and maybe you're wrongfully. I don't know all but there is a process of how that unfolds. I like the suggestion about saying what the do or don't do, but I also think lab specific.
Not
News articles.
That's not mentioning them.
Yeah.
Or not, or saying what we do.
Right.
Right. You know, instead of saying what we don't do, say this is what we do.
I agree with the letter going out to say what everyone else is doing. When a lab has a very large non-conforming issue from what happened with that lab. So from an external perspective, understanding what was reported to customers, understanding what was testified to, that there could still be cases. County has decided to review their cases does not mean every other county that is impacted. Understanding what that notification actually means. And I think it's great that I think there would be huge value in understanding what actually happened and did the corrective action process they chose to pursue efficiently and effectively with those stakeholders. Ultimately, did that to defend should happen. The state of Illinois could learn from the non-conforming work they've had. So anyone interested in that, we can really learn from other lab issues.
Yes, fully agree.
I think Claire's comment is right on the point. And so just, again, if consistent with what Claire just said, do you know if every state's attorney's office in this?
Well, I'm not gonna speak for the lab.
Right.
When something happens,
You know, just asking if you know, yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea in this particular lab, I couldn't tell you that.
Okay.
Right, and I think to Claire's point, I completely agree. And I hadn't thought about it actually, that not only could labs learn, but then stakeholders could also learn if, depending on whatever issue aside, or methodology issue is, how sufficient was the corrective action? Could this be an opportunity to identify any gaps, in the commission, again, once you get the report and find out what happened and what was done, does the commission want recommending or setting, identifying who should be notified? Again, the state's attorney seems like a no-brainer, but the idea.
But in this case, having part of still an investigation.
Right. And it's not being investigated by the lab itself because the lab is closed. So I was contacted by legal counsel from UIC to request the extension. The legal counsel who's not the quality manager. So I don't know what, and they work for UIC. So I don't know their ultimate report will look like or what they're concerned with.
And who does the report go to? Yeah, I guess I don't really understand. Right. I know, we don't even know how to even get the information.
Right, and that might be, again, something like bringing this up to be forward facing, but perhaps it's a wait and see for the report, and then if there's any or not, I mean, I don't know, I mean.
Just for clarification, so the report said this is the level of 3 Delta 9. But it's not.
I don't think, I've only a couple of reports from their lab. I don't think they reported out 3 Delta 9, they reported out total Delta 9 THC. But in the report stated no free cannabinoids detected, at least on a couple of. But that's why you would have to look at the totality of what were they reporting out over the years. Reporting changes depending on what's, different changes in legislation or just with laboratory communication. What were their methodologies? Did they only just find out in did something break in 2024? Like, had they been able to make that distinction between D8 and D9 previously, and then something changed and they were no longer to, or were they never able to determine if it was D8 or D9? Were they testifying to D9 after they notified the attorneys that they couldn't distinguish between D8 and D9? There's a lot of things that we know that would need to be investigated to get answers and the impact on the criminal justice system. And going back to what Judge Hill started with, the commission having an obligation to maintain confidence in our community with services we provide. If not us to figure that out, then who, right?
Well, this is just food for thought here, but maybe the better approach, because who's doing the investigation? When's it gonna be done? When is it made public? If it's made public, I don't know. Maybe our focus going forward should be, okay, regardless of what happens in that incident, going forward, this is the process we should put in place.
Regardless of what's happened. Yeah, which we
Like, I
recommend.
would recommend, it's only for the labs that are sitting.
Right.
How do we control, like, this is.
But there are.
Because we're.
Private lab that
Oh,
helps.
yeah.
But there are.
Their affiliation.
So they they're a lab through, with UIC, who would be paid by law enforcement agencies to work toxicology cases. So they would be contacted by the police department, hey, we want to send you DUI kits. Yes, we work DUI kits. We'll take them, we'll work them, we'll go test.
And they were accredited, so. Okay.
Totally,
So
yeah.
everything that so they fell under the
Umbrella,
that are-
right.
Okay, just wanted to make sure because that was something not usually done, so they would have to. Then if we put something forward, then you have to.
And then like
follow it.
Like that, we could do a best practices letter, basically, of what would be the best going forward. So, you know, that way, we're just talking about, as a commission, what we think the best methodologies would be
Right.
here forward.
And I agree, it's not just the that can do it in the state. I mean, there are police agencies that outsource, I know, to like another lab. So if you put best practice of what is needed, then you're using an outside lab, you know.
That's the question.
But I think the best practices we're talking about is putting a mechanism in place for addressing non-conforming work of something that goes out, not, I don't know, we could ever control a vendor lab.
No, we're not.
Why is it being
recommendation?
Right,
This is something.
that's just best practices.
Right.
So it's not about.
So the lab already had best practices. It was a 17025 lab that has to follow a non-conforming work approach, which means you have to notify your client if you have an issue. You have to send out supplemental reports or remedial reports, whatever you want to call them, to clarify the issue. And they definitely did part of that, right? A letter did go out per the press statement, State's Attorney's Office. The question is, how effective was the lab handling the non-conformity? The lab closed at some point after that letter got sent out. So what happens then? And there are all these reports out there, and those people who still get subpoenaed.
The report is issued to do a.
I mean, anyone can do a FOIA. So it's, you know, again, who's doing the investigation, the nature of it. Something that would be, let's say, but we could certainly over to the commission, and if it in the first instance, and if it's not, I could do a FOIA on behalf of the commission for it. Let me ask you this from a not substantive standpoint, procedural standpoint. Thoughts on, and I do see that people are raising their hands. We'll have public comment at the end of the regular portion of the business meeting. Because the commission, what are the thoughts on pushing this issue down to a sub? If something comes up or discussions want to be had or more information becomes available, so that the sub as kind of a little bit more in real time.
That's a good idea. Again,
It's a good idea.
happens here, if we want to have a best practices model, whether some private entity follow it or not, at least it's out there that we feel that these are the best practices. Judges, prosecutors, public defenders, everybody would at least be aware that this is what we feel is best practice. So I think if that's the thought that we want to put there, then it probably is a good idea to go to a subcommittee.
Will we have to do an entirely new subcommittee, or could this be handled under quality?
I was thinking quality is because it's already,
Into a working group.
they're already doing the annual review. Makes sense to me that it would go to quality. If quality is willing to take it on.
So if we won't know, until we could just work from there and see, and if we need more help, we can certainly solicit additional people to join the group. And get the letter back from them on it. How they handled it, and if they believe how they handled it was effective, we could do that.
And also would give you the ability to, subcommittees have done, since not everyone and is a scientist, to if or from accreditation bodies, or to educate the people on the subcommittee, that could be done there too.
Yeah. We have a quality background, so there were, I think, legal questions about, legal things. It would have to be helpful.
Clear to the point, though, of the suggestion that regardless of what happens in the situation, that, establishing a matter. Fair.
So I struggle with that because we have 17025, we have Brady disclosure rules, they're already in place. I think the question is, for me, communication, and was that communication effective? Communicating clearly, just even in general. But it's taking that moment to say, I dotted the I and crossed the T, I did the thing, I sent the letter. But does the end user reading that actually understand? And we all know when science and law comes together, sometimes there's not a clear understanding going both ways. So that's more my interest in this is there are already things in place that are supposed to be followed. Lab closes, what should happen? We can certainly discuss that, but that's, again, how do you, so the lab is closed, the lab is closed. It's ultimately responsible.
Assessment around the communication and how it's understood. So you think that to get at that, you would be working with the office in terms of their understanding of it, how.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think reading the letter that was sent out. I see. Talking to lawyers.
Yeah.
To me. Yeah. In the process that whoever received the letters, what process did they take? Go to state attorney's office? Did it go to agencies? What did they do? They think they have to do, and trying to see like a gap analysis. Okay, so but did we end up where we thought we would end up? Right?
Yeah, it seems like that makes already best practices out there. So being kind of it then would come down to each individual situation, right? Or this event happening and assessing it and making recommendations to maybe provide more effective communication or a statement or 17025, or it's be like, oh, communicate blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it has to be general to the. But in some situations, maybe. That wasn't understandable. Yeah, no, I was thinking, but again, there was, yeah, right. Because Rob Berlin, it's. That's thing too, is that people like, just because. And then what someone else downstream thinks of it as.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, I think that's to Judge Hill's point, and I think Ms. Houston's point too, and again, as a former prosecutor, having those guardrails, prosecutor's office. Non-conforming. To the level of part of the. Particular cases and notifications,
We can't hear you at all. I don't know. Um, Again, if you're trying to speak, Amy, we cannot hear you guys at all.
Lab, so I just think we have. Sure. We.
I don't know if I'm the only one, but to the commissioners, Amy, we cannot hear you at all. Every once in a while we'll hear some audio, but we cannot hear you at all.
Yeah, you're not the only one. Yeah, it's been on mine too. It was in and out, intermittent, and now I don't hear anything.
Agree. This is Carrie. I can hear everyone who's on virtually, but I can't hear from the room.
Does anyone have access to Amy or anybody in that room that you could call?
I just sent Amy a text.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Okay, thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I wonder if they can hear us. Maybe not.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
I'm assuming no.
I was just told they're working on it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lindsay.
100.
Did folks see the message in the chat? They suspended discussion while they work on the sound issue.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So if we
Want to just call in? Then I'll mute all of them. Okay, so can participants hear me now through my phone?
Yes.
Okay, so until we're able, until IT's on the way, what I've done is I've called in to my phone, and we'll pass the phone around as people speak so that that way it can be heard by people joining via WebEx. We apologize for the tech issues. We did suspend any substantive conversations once we realized there was an issue. Oh, here's tech. So please stand by. We're still working on it, everyone. Thanks for your patience. Michelle, can you hear us?
Hear you.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm going to have one more person confirm. Phil Kinsey, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, so we apologize, everyone. We're at the U of I. We were able to get their IT department to come in and fix whatever the problem is. This meeting is recorded, hopefully, and will be posted in its entirety on the website, as the other meetings are, usually within a week or two after the meeting. Hopefully, it did not impact, whatever the sound issue was as far as you guys hearing us, hopefully would not impact the recording. I will note in the minutes that there was a sound issue during, from approximately 11:10, or it looks like maybe starting even a little before that, until we recognized it. So we will now resume substantive discussions.
Well, maybe the idea, I'm kind of going back to what you suggested, the subcommittee. Maybe the subcommittee needs to have discussion on like, what is it that we want to take a look at? You know, if we want to take a look at the notification piece of it or something else, I think that's a good place to get the ball rolling. Just because again, we may not ever find out what happened in this particular instance or know what was being investigated or what wasn't, but if we could at least, just as an aside, maybe not best practices on the lab or the closing of the lab, but maybe best practices on the notification piece might be something, or other things, but I think the subcommittee is probably the best spot for this to move forward on this topic.
Say?
Did you raise your hand?
No, I just. So maybe the subcommittee could look at kind of like a two-pronged. The first being a statement about what labs currently do, like we did for the DNA letter. And then the second would be the further research from the start to the beginning, including like the methodologies and the communication and kind of an overall look at as much as they can of the the issue and then try to report out any suggestions or recommendations after that overall approach, which is gonna obviously take a while, but the first part, the statement should be a little bit easier to get something out in the next, maybe by the next meeting.
Since I don't know at what point people can hear you, do you want to, if you're able to summarize what you had kind of a lengthy comment, or no? Okay, you don't have to. Just about the idea, so I'll attempt to summarize where we were at, in case since it sounds like we were cutting off, is the commission members were discussing, different possible things to look at, and then how to approach them within the scope of the statute. And Ms. Dragovich made one comment about what lessons could be learned when there's an issue at a lab.
Right, so when there's a non-conforming work event, we can all learn from other labs in how they identified that issue, how they addressed that issue, were their communications to their clients and stakeholders, while fulfilling maybe accreditation requirements, were they clear to the end user of that document what exactly the issue was and how that communication was received, and then looking more holistically, like from beginning to end, like Karen said, what was the issue with the methodology through to, okay, the ultimate people who got the letters, did they really know what that meant? To fully understand the impact on our criminal justice system.
Anyone have anything else they want to say still at this point? Okay, so it sounds like, and I don't think this is something that requires an action vote or anything like that, because I always just put action under any discussion item, should you decide to take some action, and that way you're covered. So what I'm hearing is that next steps would be to have this issue kind of get moved to the quality subcommittee, because they can act more in real time because they meet more than quarterly. As this situation evolves, we talked about you talked about, looking to kind of not really knowing yet what you might be able to make recommendations or comments on, but one thing that you could do was, in the subcommittee, is start to draft a statement about what other labs in Illinois do with respect to this type of testing, similar to the victim DNA. And then, as information becomes available, you can decide what you want to look at and kind of then pivot from there and report back to the commission, both on the status of what you're learning, as well as then if there's any action items that the commission would need to take. One thing, and I don't know if this came across before, we talked about the possibility of, once the investigation that's being done is complete, requesting that investigation, the results of that investigation, either via request or via FOIA. That is something that I could do on behalf of the commission. So I think that's probably a logical step whenever the report is done, that you would want the report. I know you talked, there's a lot of just back and forth, but is there anything else that anyone wants to highlight as far as kind of the way the quality system subcommittee will approach this?
I'm just not clear. Someone is actively working on a report now, as I understand it. Is that correct?
It's an investigation.
By the UIC.
By UIC?
Yes, that's how the gentleman identified himself as UIC counsel.
And so if and when FOIAs are sent out, they would go to UIC, since the lab itself is closed.
Well, the lab isn't closed. So AFSO is still open, but they're no longer doing human
Got
testing.
it. Okay.
So I'm guessing it'll probably still go to the lab.
Got it. Okay.
But either the lab or UIC.
I mean,
What's the affiliation with AFSO?
After what's the name of the USC lab?
Oh, now within our forces.
No.
Forensic testing.
Analytical forensic testing.
Yeah. Oh, like FTL.
Yes.
You're saying
Exact same thing?
FTL, okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
I saw that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but as far as who to direct the FOIAs to, it could be the lab and or the UIC, depending on who is doing the investigation and who, it, you know, whatever form that takes, whether it's a report or findings or, we don't know yet. Okay. Anything else anyone wants to say on that topic? Okay, then we will move on to, so we're out of discussion items, we're into housekeeping items. I only have one, which is that the next meeting, which is scheduled for, I think it is it June 11th, Wednesday, June 11th. As you'll recall, that was a location to be determined, but hosted by ISP. Up north was kind of what we were thinking. So, in speaking to ISP, we have settled on the Forensic Science Center in Chicago. So that is where the next meeting will be. Everyone up north is happy about that. Everyone central or south is unhappy about that. But you know, it's a beautiful time of year to visit the northern part of the state. So that is where the next meeting will take place. Does anyone else have any housekeeping items? Okay, so then I am now going to open this for public.
I do have.
Oh, you do, okay.
Is everybody remembering to submit your, reimbursements? Anybody talking about travel, don't forget if you have to travel up north or if you travel south, submit your reimbursements before the new fiscal year. And that will be the end of June.
Okay, so for the June meeting, it'd be important to, if you're traveling, to do that paperwork quickly. Because, yeah, fiscal years will be probably decidedly different.
Yes. Fiscal year starts July 1, so make sure you get your reimbursements in.
Okay, any other housekeeping items? Okay, so for public comment, I'm going to start first by opening it up to the individuals who are here in person, and then we will open it up to individuals who are joining us via WebEx. If you would like to make a comment via WebEx, I'd ask you to please raise your hand or indicate in the chat, and then I will, as best as my screen indicates, call on you in the order that you raise your hand or so indicate. So I'll start first with the individuals present here at the meeting. We have no public comment in person. Okay, do we have anyone who wishes to offer public comment from via WebEx? Okay, so the first person I have is Amy Miles, followed by Maya Duke-Masova. So I'm going to first open it up to Amy Miles.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to sit in on this. I'm Amy Miles. I'm from Madison, Wisconsin, so I'm sort of northern Illinois, I guess. I manage the regional toxicology liaisons. So I just wanted to offer a couple of things. I was wondering if you feel like you have support for SB 1889, and if not, I have some others that would be willing to lobby your support for you. So I know we have to be really careful about that, but we can ask others to do that for us. So if that's needed, I plan to send Amy Watraba an email after this, but I'm happy to do that. And then I just had a question about your position on that bill. I see 5 nanograms is still in there as a per se, and I'm just wondering, I don't know if you have a toxicologist on your commission, but if you've discussed just per se, and they actually are finding that those are a little bit detrimental because they're not based in science. So I didn't know if you've had discussions about per se and addressing that at all in your reports. And then just again, if I can help in any way, I'm happy to help you all with resources and things like that from a national perspective. So thank you for the time.
Thank you for your comment. Next, I don't know if her hand is still up, Maya Duke-Masova. Did you wish to offer public comment? I don't think she's muted. Ms. Duke-Masova, could you either indicate yes or no if you still wish to, just so that I'm sure I don't accidentally miss you?
Hello?
Yes. Hi, did you still wish to open?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, my microphone was not working. I just wanted to ask that the late joining folks, the people who came later to the meeting who have not been publicly identified, to be identified for the record.
Sure. So let's see who I have. I have Joanne Liu from the Illinois State Police, who did not join or who was not early on. Declan Binninger from the Illinois State Police. I do have 1630 phone number. Whoever has a 630 phone number ending in 14, if you could please identify yourself verbally or in the chat.
Hi, Amy. This is Jennifer Maples. I was on under my name, but during the audio issues, I flipped to my phone to see if it was my computer. So
thank you,
Jennifer Maples from DuPage.
I did see your name. I think those are the only new people who've joined. And just so you're aware, Ms. Dukmasova, when I do the minutes, I do have anyone who's joined that wasn't present during roll call, it shows up on my screen, so that will be reflected in the minutes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone else wish to offer public comment? Okay, hearing none, I'll close public comment. And then next meeting is on, am I saying it right off memory? Wednesday, June 11th at 10 a.m. at the Forensic Science Center in Chicago. The address off the top of my head is it 1941 West Roosevelt Road?
Yeah.
All right, I thought that I was remembering that correct. I know. So 1941 West Roosevelt Road. That information will be updated on the commission's website, and then the agenda will be posted prior to the meeting in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. At this time, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn this meeting of the Forensic Science Commission.
Second.
And on second.
Okay, anyone, we can do this by affirmation. Any opposition to adjourning the meeting? No? All right, this meeting is adjourned at 11:43 a.m. Thank you all so much. And thank you, members of the public, for joining us, and for the commission members who joined us via web. We appreciate your